But most of all, what we do is to try and evoke and sell romance. What was it all about? Who are we? What is our heritage? What is maritimity? If you could close your eyes and imagine one massively romantic idea that you could then transport from India westwards to West Asia and eastwards all the way to China, it would be MAUSAM. Then India will should naturally be the leader of this entire project. Aha! There is hope. We can still ride on a horse and tilt at a windmill and pretend it is some giant and ride a donkey and... Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Sri Yadubir Singh Rawat, Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, Professor Himanshu Prabha Ray, Senior Maritime Archaeologist, and someone whom I have long looked up to, honesty of purpose and her intensity of intent. Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, whom you've just mesmerized by a few minutes ago, Dr. Munjal, members of the Professor B.B. Lal Memorial Committee, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. So I thought I would start by talking to you for a minute or two about the National Maritime Foundation, whose Director General I am privileged to be for the last 7 odd years. The National Maritime Foundation is India's foremost resource center for the advocacy, formulation of geo-strategies for the protection and promotion of all India's maritime interests. So what does it do, this National Maritime Foundation? It looks at the ocean in its entirety, but that it looks at it solely at the ocean. So do we do hard security? Yes. Is that all we do? No. So we do everything that is associated with the maritime domain. What about fisheries? Yes. What about the deep sea exploration of the seabed? Yes. Do we do the blue economy? It's difficult to make out because I'm not sure what exact. I've spent 7 years trying to rescue the blue economy from economists. And so I would much rather prefer to use the term, do we do the bluing of the economy? Now, the bluing of the economy is quite a different term than the blue economy, which is open to some amount of debate as to whether it's the ocean economy or anything else. But the bluing of the economy is certainly what we do. Do we do public international maritime law? Yes, so in India, private international law or private law or admiralty law, there is no dearth of scholarship, no dearth of practitioners, and no dearth of money. In public international maritime law, on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm afraid we are yet to climb onto the scale. We are really poorly off. So do we have eminent judges on in the International Tribunal in the Law of the Sea? Yes, we have. Should we be proud? Yes, we should. How many do we have? 1. Should we be ashamed? Yes. How does Justice Neeru Chadda go to sleep every night? Why doesn't she wake up in nightmares thinking one of the 1.4 billion people are telling her, roll away, baby, here we come? Why is this not happening? So we are addressing this. So we tackle things that other people have not tackled adequately, incorporating, say, for example, everything from here. When we talk about look east, do we forget sometimes to look west? So what about Africa? Do we concentrate upon Africa? Yes, we do. The maritime part of Africa. But most of all, what we do is to try and evoke and sell romance. This is what we do. This is what we aspire to do. Because India, if it has one thing which it is in grave danger of losing after 5 millennia, of simply reveling in romance, is romance. We are forgetting how to understand the romance of history, how to understand the romance of archaeology, not how to understand this or that theorem or this or that equation. But what was it all about? Who are we? What is our heritage? What is maritimity? This is what the National Maritime Foundation seeks to do. We do this through a deep and symbiotic relationship with the Indian Navy. And the reason is because the Chief of Naval Staff, who last demitted office, automatically becomes the chairman of the National Maritime Foundation. Me, I am the Director General, the CEO. So between the two of us, we have a reasonable into the Indian Navy, and we are able to therefore influence matters of government from inside as well as outside. We do not have to castigate government all the time from outside. So that's what I wanted to say about the National Maritime Foundation. I do hope that you will afford it some interest. We have a good and interesting website. Now we will have one more picture of the INSV Kaudinya in it, and hopefully we will see a rakish-looking part-time economist. No. A true economist of great caliber and our country's great hope, and we hope to be able to work closely with Mr. Sanyal going forward. So now Project MAUSAM. Project MAUSAM is one of the... We need to do something about Project MAUSAM. It's been around for 11 years. And we're not... If you could close your eyes and imagine one massively romantic idea that you could then transport from India westwards to West Asia and eastwards all the way to China, it would be MAUSAM. It is the root word for the whole climate, the weather, the monsoon winds. It is on the back of this monsoon winds that the four great religions that we are associated with, that namely Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, all moved on the back of this monsoon wind, moving from West Asia, not carrying the "my religion is better than your religion" nonsense, but actually carrying the cultural treasure that every great religion and every great civilization brings in its wake. And if we have a civilization that dates back 5,000 years, and in a mix of archaeological evidence and historiography, then India will should naturally be the leader of this entire project. We can't sell romance, then we can't sell anything. We can't sell 5,000 years of romance, then I'm afraid we're really quite pedestrian in our approach. We won't be able to sell a sausage. Maybe we'll sell a sausage, but we won't sell anything else. And yet, therefore, it is important to realize that Project MAUSAM is not just a romantic idea either. It is part of the geo-strategy of India. And in India, we have geo-economic goals and non-geo-economic goals. And MAUSAM as a project straddles both of them. For instance, in the non-geo-economic goal set, we wish to position India as the preferred partner in the maritime domain all across the Indo-Pacific, what we now call the Indo-Pacific. And we want to be able to position ourselves as a wise and sagacious leader of maritime issues. Why? Because let me transport you back to modern India and not dwell unduly upon romance. In modern India, there is a geopolitical entity called India, which has a cartographic identity, isn't it? And we are committed to ensure that when you look at a map and you see the shape of India, you recognize that's India, not this truncated form or that peculiar form. And in this, in terms of economics, we are an inverted triangle. Our shape, our geography. And on the top, we have the Trans-Himalayan border, which is pretty much impassable for most of the activities that we wish to undertake in economic terms. One vertex is Pakistan, whose main import and main export is terror. On the other vertex, we have China, whose main interest seems to be how to change the shape of this triangle. So consequently, we have very little option but to try and leverage the peninsula of India. Now I know that we have, I've heard Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal with rapt attention talking to us eminent sense about how compounding is important. But don't forget, while 67% of our economy is going to be continuing to be driven by internal supply and internal demand, it still leaves 27.9% of just our merchandise trade, which is impacting our GDP all the time. That means our trade to GDP ratio of merchandise trade is almost 30% today. If you add services in it, we reach 50%. But we don't need to add services because services do not travel by any particular mode. So as a result, is the Indian Navy therefore be committed to areas larger than simply war fighting? Of course we are. Of course it is. And in this is the connect between Project MAUSAM on the one hand and the Indian Navy on the other hand. Now let me try and give you one inspiration drawn from Air Marshal Lal's presentation. You know, when Edward Fitzgerald translated the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, he wrote that the moving finger writes, and having writ moves on, nor all your piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all your tears wash off a word of it. Now there are many challenges to this translation, but I'm not going there. What I'm trying to tell you is that, is it true? This leads me to a major dilemma. Is it true that once we have written history, that's it? And we are forced to swallow that history? Whose was the moving finger that wrote? Was it ours? Was it our ancestors? Did somebody come from some other country and decide that his was the moving finger? Then is this true, that not all your piety nor wit shall cancel half a line, nor all your tears wash out a word of it? And if it is not true, and I believe that this is not true, then history is not a dead subject, nor is archaeology, which is the underpinning of history in terms of evidential facts. History is a living subject, and a nation that does not respect its history will soon have none. And therefore, we need to have a navy that is deeply invested in the traditions of our country, not merely the traditions that occurred with the British. Actually, the British are very important to India. For the most part, I think that if they didn't exist, we would have been forced to invent them. But this is trite. What I do want to say is that prior to the British, 100 years prior to the British, were the Portuguese. How did all this happen? We all learn all these lessons about, about the number of our freedom fighters who laid down their lives, who lost property, life, limb, providing India with its freedom. But we are seldom taught, how did we lose our freedom in the first place? What happened? So what do you think? Did Robert Clive actually just land up on the battlefield of Plassey by saying, "Beam me up, Scotty," and he arrived? Do you think that's what happened? What happened was, in 1509, we lost a battle. It was called the Battle of Diu. On that one day, we fielded something around 123 ships of varying kinds, mostly drawn from the Yukti Kalpataru's vestiges. And the Yukti Kalpataru, as has been correctly pointed out, is what? Raja Bhoj, relatively recent. That means it skips almost 3,000 years. But we had mostly riverine craft. And when we brought riverine craft, we faced only 23 Portuguese ships. Did we have cannon and they didn't have cannon? No. We had cannon. We had a quad. Do you know that we had a quad? We had the Mamluks of Egypt. We had the Sultan of Gujarat. We had the Samutri of Calicut. And we had Venice, the Doge of Venice and his cannon. We even had Serbo-Croatia. But we lost. Why did we lose? Why did we lose? Were we not brave? Were we not intrepid? Were we not practiced? The thing is like this, that we practiced non-stop one form of endeavor. And let me give you a sports example and say that we practiced non-stop. We had the best kabaddi team in the world. We were really good. We couldn't be beat. And we reached there and they said, we're going to play basketball. And we said, we are going to play basketball, but we brought a kabaddi team in. In other words, we had riverine competence and we forgot the merits of trying to do naval architecture such that broadsides could be fired by cannon and the ship would not capsize by the simple action and reaction theory so well popularized. So coming to Project MAUSAM now. Project MAUSAM is a project that the Indian Navy is investing in and must invest in for the following reasons. First of all, many of the reasons I've already mentioned, and nor are we alone in this particular endeavor. If you take the French have the Hermione, and they use this vessel to, what do they use it for? They use it to tell the world, hi, we are France. And we say, ooh. And then the Americans come along and with their Navy weak ships, and we say, if the Indian Navy will not carry the Indian heritage, the Indian maritimity concepts across, then who will? And so, when the Kaudinya was one manifestation of this Project MAUSAM, it was natural that the Indian Navy will step up to the plate and tell Mr. Sanyal, hi, we can help. Today, I've had the third or fourth interaction with Mr. Sanyal, and our refrain is always still the same. Hi, we can help. We know how to do these things. We know how to have naval architects. We, after all, do build aircraft carriers. We build nuclear-powered submarines. We are a nation that should be proud of its maritime prowess. There is a gap period. This gap period we need to bridge all the time. And it can't happen by government. Government is hopeless at this. But government can provide the wherewithal. Government can throw up some odd needle of excellence that will produce this. What we need is India. Government, private sector, public-private enterprise, some historians. There's no boring history, guys. There are only boring historians. There is no lousy mathematics. There are just crap mathematics teachers. Therefore, it is within us to do this. How should we romanticize things? How should we sell? What movies should we make? Should our movies be all amateur rubbish? Should we not make a movie that glues our audience to the seats and says, I just loved her, and you don't know whether he's talking about the her as a woman or her as the ship? Maybe he's talking about both. Wow. Can we not do this? Can we not look to our young children, our young people, our young students, and say to them, you are tech savvy, you are tech whizzes, we know a few things, we know how to sell this to you, and if you can leave this August audience gathering with the feeling that, some sense out there, let's try and help, then we will not have to have one Indian naval sailing. By the way, the INSV Kaudinya is also unique in another respect, apart from it being a stitched ship on the Tanaka tradition. It has also got one unique feature as well. It is the only Indian ship which carries the name of an individual. Did you know that? The Indian Navy never, ever names a ship after a human being, including the Vikramaditya. This is not the Emperor Vikramaditya. This is Vikramaditya as it means. Yeah, that's why you need admirals from time to time. So, what I want to tell you is, that if you remember nothing more of what the Indian Navy's contribution has been to Project MAUSAM and what the Indian Navy's contribution will be, remember at least this, that there is no more romantic service than the Indian Navy. I mean, yeah, you know, guys, we are in the business of killing people. That's what we do. We just think that if we kill them with enough style and enough panache, maybe they wouldn't mind being dead. We've never really asked them, but that is the romance of the Navy. When we go to Sri Lanka and we want Sri Lanka to not provide refueling facilities to Pakistani conventionally powered submarines, because then that will allow them to reach the Bay of Bengal, do you think we go and catch the nearest Sri Lankan president and shake him by the collar and tell him that 32 ke 32 dant haath mein de dunga? We don't do that. We say, hi, wouldn't you? We send our biggest in-your-face vessel bristling with missiles and guns, and we say, hi, wouldn't you like to come and have cocktails on our ship? And then those who need to see the cocktails, they see the cocktails. And those who see the missiles, they see the missiles. And all messages are passed. This, ladies and gentlemen, is romance. This is the Indian Navy. And so our mission-based deployments are already in place. We have structures in place. We have Indian naval vessels everywhere all the time. What we need to now do is get you, from time to time, it is our job to inspire you. And from time to time, it's your job to inspire us. And so every time we meet a Sanjeev Sanyal, which unfortunately is not often, but every time we meet him, we think, aha, there is hope. We can still ride on a horse and tilt at a windmill and pretend it is some giant and ride a donkey and call it a horse and have a kitchen wench and call her Rosalinda or whatever. Romance is still there. Buy romance, ladies and gentlemen. Buy the Indian Navy. Buy India. Thank you very much.